Welcome to Backstage with Becca with special guest Jordan Dobson. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Backstage with Becca. On this episode, in 2019, he made his Broadway debut in West Side Story, where he was a standby and alternate for Tony. He's played Orpheus in Hadestown on Broadway, was in the original Broadway cast of both A Beautiful Noise and Bad Cinderella, and recently got to be a part of the movie Maestro, directed by Bradley Cooper. Please welcome Jordan Dobson. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Very excited to have this scheduled today. I was looking over your resume the other day, and I was realizing that you have not stopped, basically. I feel like the pandemic kind of stopped you, but you have not stopped since 2019-ish.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's been kind of crazy, honestly, but such a blessing, you know?
Wild. Yeah. I mean, it just goes to speak, it speaks to your talent and to Broadway, finding you and wanting to keep you. They're
Yeah, I'm pretty grateful for it.
they're like, yes, we need to keep him in shows.
Yeah, it's so wild. And I bounce around so often, which is also pretty wild. So
Yes. Well,
yeah.
it's awesome because you have a variety of stuff on your resume.
Yeah. In a matter of a short amount of time. I feel like I never stay in one show too long, which is kind of wild.
Yeah. So, first of all, how have you been? How's life?
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy. I mean, I feel like I just got back to the city after being in Jersey for a while and jumped back into A Beautiful Noise, which has been so insane to be quite honest. So yeah, just having a bunch of fun, but also just trying to keep my head on straight and you know, stay settled.
Yeah. And find time to probably do stuff during the day and
Yeah, just
auditions.
oh my goodness, yeah, auditioning during the day
Yeah.
on top of doing the shows at night and
Um,
just trying to stay in touch with my family as much as
yeah.
possible. I have a cat, so whenever I can, I just sit on the couch with her and just you know.
Yes. I mean, and just chill. You have to
Yeah,
do that. It's a requirement, I think.
it is. Yeah. My cat, her name's Lemon. She kind of reminds me to chill out and not to be go, go, go and all the time. I'm like, well, I gotta hang with Lemon. So
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
So I want to talk theater. Have you always known that you wanted to be a theater performer? And when was the moment that you first realized that you could do it and you have like that talent?
Yeah, no, I didn't really always know that theater was gonna be for me. I mainly grew up as a musician, like woodwind instruments and piano and drums and stuff like that. And I always wanted to be in the orchestra, like in the pit of Broadway shows. That was always my goal. Like when I went to see Wicked, I was just watching the conductor the whole time and just seeing who the reed player was. Who I ended up working with, the reed player in
Oh
Wicked.
my gosh,
Yeah, West Side Story, which was my Broadway debut. So
full circle.
yeah, very full circle. But the moment that I realized is that I could be an actor is I started doing the shows in high school, um, just for fun, and then I saw a production of Parade at the Arden Theater in Philly, and it kind of changed my whole life, to be quite honest. I was like, this is
That's
insane. This is so one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I think I want to do that. And then from there on out, I auditioned for one theater program. I had applied to a bunch of schools for music, but I was like, if I get into this one theater program, I will. It's like a sign that I should be an actor. And then I got in. I went to Temple University. So
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. I mean, well, I feel like of course you got it. And that musician edge too. It kind of is probably a plus for
True.
you because like, well, he knows how to play instruments as well.
Yeah, definitely a huge plus in my whole career. I've been playing, at least in the two of the shows that I've done on Broadway, I've played guitar in both. And just
Yeah.
other regional shows, I've gotten to play the wind instruments and stuff. but I like when I was auditioning for Temple, it was not a like, of course he got in. Like I knew nothing about theater. I didn't have like a binder, like a book as we call it. Like you know those books of like musical theater anthology songs. I
Yeah.
in that thing. It was just like, here's my song, and it like wouldn't stay open. I think I was wearing like basketball shorts. Like it was not professional for me.
Oh, well, they saw talent,
Yeah,
and you were like, "Oh, okay. Well, pleasant surprise. That's I'm gonna do this."
right. I saw some potential.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm very grateful
yes.
to them.
So before I get into Broadway, I actually want to talk about you're in an Oscar nominated and like highly award nominated film right now
Yeah.
that Bradley Cooper directed. Like sheesh. So it's called Maestro. How did
Yes.
you get involved with that? And what was your experience working with Bradley Cooper on that like?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, it's just so wild hearing you say that. Like that's something I never thought for myself. Um, and it just feels so surreal. It came about just like any other audition. My manager emailed me and was like, "Hey, here's an audition for Maestro." Actually, at the time, I think they wouldn't tell me the name of the film. Um, I think I knew that it was about a conductor, and that might be it. Because sometimes with big projects, they're pretty secretive. They don't tell you
Yeah.
the name, they don't tell you the script, they don't give you the script. Sometimes a fake script, which I don't think that was the case here. It wasn't like a fake script for me for Maestro, but I didn't have the name and I didn't know exactly what I was auditioning for. Um, but yeah, I just sent in my tape of me like, doing the scenes and like fake conducting. And a while had passed, and then they were like, "Hey, we want to do a session with you, with the casting directors." So we were on Zoom just like this, and I was like in this room. I put a backdrop and a ring light and did the scene, and then a few days after that, I either did that one more time with casting, or they were like, "Bradley wants to Zoom with you, like be on Zoom," and I was like, "Okay, like what should I?" And they were like, you don't have to prepare anything, just be ready for anything. And I was like, okay. So I'm like looking up improv skills like on YouTube. Like I don't have a lot of experience with improv. And I'm just like, what's gonna happen? And he actually just offered me the film. Like just
Oh
we were just like chatting as just people. He was like giving his daughter a bath. It was super, super
God.
casual. And he was like, yeah, so when we do the film, or I hope you want to do it. And I was like, yeah,
Yes.
I do want to do it. And it just turned into this like really surreal moment in my life that I got to be on that set and work with him and learn so much from him. He's absolutely brilliant. So it was,
Yes.
yeah, that was really cool.
Like speaking of multi-talented.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. He's directing the film while starring in it and writing, like co-writing it. So he would be rewriting and he would be like, "Oh, I had this idea the other day." And he always stayed in the Lenny voice because when I meet Lenny, it's later on in his life. So he's older and he kind of like talks like this, um, so he would be directing and changing cameras and be like, "Oh, just start improving. You don't have to stick to the script." And all while like sounding like Lenny and being in full prosthetics. I don't know how he did it. It was just juggling so much. All the while, I t- I have to just like he's just so patient. I told him I was like, this is my first film. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. And he would walk me through. He'd be like, "Oh, I'm changing the camera lens to do this because of like break it all down for me." And I was just like, thank you so much. I get to learn so much about the industry. And yeah.
Well, also, I think it's really cool that you're in a film about a conductor. And
Yeah.
when you mentioned earlier that, like, what inspired you originally when you saw shows was the conductor, like in Wicked.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's so incredibly full circle because I've always wanted to conduct a huge orchestra like that. I mean, that's as a like band nerd, that is my dream come true to do something like that. And I just never thought I'd be able to, especially when I switched to acting. So the fact that both worlds collided and I'm up there on the podium in Tanglewood where Bernstein actually did his master classes. I was like bawling my eyes out. Like I'm a mess. Steven Spielberg's there, and I'm just like crying. Oh, but it was honestly the best moment of my life. It was being able to conduct that orchestra on camera, like for this film, you know?
Well, and learning from also someone that you've seen in multiple movies,
Oh my
and
goodness.
whose
Yeah.
like work you get to be like, wow, I'm like learning from this person.
Yeah. And like funny story, when I was doing West Side Story, which was my Broadway debut, um Bradley Cooper came to see the show and I missed him. Like I was a standby for Tony, so I wasn't on that night. And I left the theater early because you're allowed to leave when they make their last entrance. And I left and everyone was like, Bradley Cooper was here. How cool. And I was like, I missed my opportunity to meet Bradley Cooper. And he's from Philly, so am I. Like, I've looked up to Bradley for so long. So that coming back around, like
Good
somehow,
timing.
yeah, it was so cosmic. So everything about it was just like the universe being like, we got you, don't worry, you know?
Yeah, the universe said, no, you didn't. You didn't miss your opportunity. Here it is. Here, here's a kind of like better opportunity
Yeah,
to work
yeah.
with him.
It was so insane. Like, and my friends in West Side that were like, "Oh, remember when you thought you'd never meet Bradley Cooper?" And like, here we are working together. It
Yes,
still feels so crazy to even talk about. So I'm just so grateful for it.
literally insane. So before I get into a West Side, I want to, how do you think acting on stage helps you when it comes to filming a movie?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I feel like a lot of people in the film Maestro have a similar experience because a lot of us are stage actors, which Bradley kind of took a liking to. And I think it's because actually I'm stealing this from an interview from the casting director of Maestro, but she said it, Shayna. Um, just that theater actors are so malleable because there's so much that you have to deal with on stage. You're creating an environment and an atmosphere in your mind, pretending that as if an audience isn't there. So you're creating this world, and then there are so many variables on stage that you have to deal with. So many things can go wrong, and you have to keep going. So the ability to just like roll with whatever's happening was very helpful with screen acting, where it's just like you don't always have to, well, in this case, didn't always have to stick to the script, could come up with new ideas on the spot, you know, collaborate with anyone else in the scene and be like, oh, actually this, or how about this? So there's just like a lack of fear when it comes to something new and unrehearsed, I think. Um, and also just like a bravery to like to just like you
Yeah.
know go for it, like sink your teeth into it.
To kind of like adapt to whatever's happening in the scene,
Exactly.
probably. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, what a cool experience to get to like, I mean, were you expecting during the filming process for it to be like a big award season movie?
no, no. I guess other people around me were saying like, you know, this already has like a lot of buzz.
Y-
But I just like didn't listen to it. I was like, listen, I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to do my scenes and hope that I don't mess anything up. Um, but I just try not to think about that stuff. And same on Broadway, like try not to
Yeah.
think about the award season and all that. It's just like a part of the industry that stresses me out so much that I'm like, I can't even think about it. And then after the fact, it's I mean that's the nice thing about film is that you do it and it's done, and then you can just watch it. And if it gets awards, it's like awesome, cool. But in theater, you have to keep doing the show. So if you get no nominations or you get a bunch of nominations, you either have to live up to that every night or keep proving that you're worth being on this stage.
Each show's a
Um,
week.
it shows each week. So it's it's brutal in comparison to the on-screen world, where it's like I went to the premiere of Maestro and I was with my manager, my heart was beating, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. It's such a big night." And then I was like, "Wait, I don't have to perform. We already did it. I'm just going to watch a movie, literally." And that was like a big culture shock to me. I was like, "The big opening night, there's no pressure. you just show up and watch it and just like be like, yeah, that was me. So,
You're used to performing on opening nights,
oh my
like
goodness.
doing like interviews and then going on stage.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like you're doing all this press and everyone in the industry and everyone that you know is there. So like if I don't nail this tonight, everyone in the industry is gonna be like, yeah, remember when Jordan
No,
cracked an opening, you know? That's what it feels like to me. I get a little
no.
stressed about big events in theater.
I think everyone at opening nights of theater, or should, well, at least should go into these opening nights going, this is live theater. Like, this is an experience. These
Yeah.
actors are performing live on stage. Like,
And you know what? You're right. You're right. There is so much love in the audience. It's just these voices in the back of my head that I feel
yes.
like so many performers have of like, don't mess this up. And you try and quiet all of that as best you can. And that's, I think, an ongoing, lifelong journey, at least for me.
Yes. I also think it's really cool that you learn improv for the movie.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and by learn improv, that's like a very loose term. I was just like on YouTube and calling friends, be like, what are the fundamentals of
Yeah.
improv? You know, like um just because I didn't know what that final callback was gonna be. And then it just happened to be us chatting about, actually gonna do the movie. And then I did not know when we were filming that he was gonna be like, just say whatever you want to say. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, all right, here we go. But he just takes care of actors so well because he is an actor.
Yes.
So I've
Yeah.
never felt more safe. I've never felt more supported, and more like valued as an artist than working with him and that entire team that he cultivated for Maestro. He's
That's
just, I can't say enough good things about the experience. It was a dream come true.
well, he's wonderful. And
Yeah.
I want to say that I am based in LA. So like I see a lot of like small shows that revolve around like a lot of actors doing improv.
Oh
And
yeah.
these actors in these shows are like improv is the hardest thing to learn and to like get into like master.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. It scares the crap out of me. Um, but I mean that's how you know you're doing something right when you're like so
Yep.
frightened. That's what they always say. So I just keep banking on that. But I want to
Yes.
get better at it. I want to like take classes and like really dive into that world. So
Well, you've gotten to do it on the camera, so
yeah.
you've already got to start. So, as I mentioned, you've been busy in New York since like 2019ish roughly. So, how did you before the pandemic, you were involved with the West Side Story revival, which I feel like the pandemic kind of like unfairly closed. I know
Yeah.
that it was very like expensive to produce because there were so many like cool effects.
Yeah.
But how did you get involved with West Side Story? What was your audition like?
Oh my goodness. It was actually pretty crazy. I had an agent at the time. I just moved to the city. I did one regional show after moving to the city, and then right after it closed, I was hanging out with a cast member, and it was like a next day audition for the Tony standby in the West Side Story revival. And I was like, they're still casting this? Because it had been like a year of casting that show. And in my mind, I'm like, Tony? Like, we know West Side Story. The Jets are white, the Sharks are Latino. I was just like, there's some mistake. What's going on? And they were like, no, they're doing something weird and different. And I was like, okay. I didn't know the song. I didn't know the songs very well. Um, I knew something's coming, but I like not well enough to like perform tomorrow. And it was at 10 a.m. the next day. So I just went in and was just like, this is what I got. And then I think like 7 auditions and callbacks later was my final. I just kept going in, and and over a span of many months, then they were like, it was down to like work sessions where they were like, this is like a rehearsal, but you don't have the job yet. We just want to see what it's kind of like to work with you. And it was me and a few other guys. It was just so intense. And they were like, Well, talk about improv.
Yeah.
They were asking a bunch of people to improv dance just randomly to no music. They were just
That would
like,
be so stressful.
oh my God, there's like show us how you move. They were just
Yeah.
like, uh,
Uh,
I didn't have to do that as much as other people because I've heard stories about other people's auditions for West Side, that revival. Um, but yeah, it was just kind of insane. And then on my final, I remember being like, not in a privileged way, but I remember being like, I got like, what are we doing? I have nothing else to give you guys. This is all, I'm gonna keep doing it the same way unless you ask for something different. But they weren't asking for anything different. So I was just like,
like
what's going?
rehearsal.
Yeah, I was like, what are we doing? And they were just like testing my range. But I think it was because one, I'd never been on Broadway before. There's a lot of money in this production. I think they knew I was going to be going on a lot because it's a really difficult role, and with in an insane production, they probably knew it was
Yeah.
going to be cheating in it. I didn't. Um, so I think they were like, we really have to put this guy through the ringer to make sure he's trustworthy. And looking back, I understand that. I totally like it's a lot of money going into these productions. So you
Oh
got
my
to make sure
God.
someone can do it. Um, and then I got it. My agent called, and at the same time, I was in like the boot camps for Hamilton. And
Oh my God.
yeah, my agent called and he was like, "You're going to Broadway," and I was like, "Hamilton, oh my God!" And he was like, "No, West Side
West
Story." And I
Side.
was like, "What?" I did not think I booked it. I was like, "There's no way I got that job," and then I did, and I was like, "Holy shit! I have to learn how to sing this now." Like, it's an insane
Yeah,
singing.
it is. And I feel like the beat is just so like it that makes it difficult to learn the lyrics to the songs.
Oh my gosh, yeah, something's coming alone is these tempo changes. And I mean, luckily, like I come from the world of music, so that once again
Yeah.
helped me greatly in that process. But the audition process was probably the most insane audition process I've ever had for anything.
Well, and you got to learn how to learn what goes into being a standby too. Like
Whew.
first show on Broadway, Broadway debut, and you get and they're like, "Well, here's your job of standby."
Yeah,
Now,
I was like,
which
what?
is
I was
a
like,
whole full job of itself because
yeah,
you always have to be ready for anything.
always. And I didn't realize that means like that meant if he goes to a costume fitting in rehearsal, they're like, Jordan, hop in. I'm like, I haven't done it yet. And then it's like, no, you
You,
always have to be
you're
ready. No matter what. It could be day 2 of rehearsal. He's doing press. They're like, we need you to, and I'm like, okay. But then like first week of previews, he got terribly injured. And mind you, at this point, like understudies, standby swings don't get rehearsed until the show is open. And we had 2 months of previews. So first week of previews, he gets a bad injury and he's like, "Oh, I've had this injury before. I'll be fine. I'll be back tomorrow." They're like, "We're gonna do a precautionary put in." It wasn't even a put in. They like walked me through some things on stage. And then halfway through that, they were like, "Oh, switching gears, you're doing the matinee today." And I was like,
oh,
"Can I call my mom?" Like, I was just so freaked out. And then it went well, and they were like, "All right, you're actually playing this role for the next like month." And I was like,
oh
"Oh, okay. Now it's about stamina and
yes.
consistency and like figuring out how to do this 8 times a week." And then from then on, I was the alternate, so I was standing by and doing 2 or more shows a week. So it was just like baptized by fire. This is Broadway. This is how to lead an entire company. Um, yeah, and luckily I had Isaac Powell who played Tony as like a brother in that sense of like, all right, we're doing this together. We're kind of like
Yes.
he was teaching me so much. He had been on Broadway before and kind of walked me through it. And when I had to take over the mantle, I knew I could always call him and be like, "Hey, how do I do this one part?" You know? Um, so really blessed for him and the people that surrounded me in that show.
I mean, what a Broadway debut to just kind of get thrown in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you're like, oh, I wasn't like I knew I was in the show, like I didn't know I was going to go on so soon.
Yeah, yeah, nobody knew. Nobody thought that was gonna happen. There, like, most of the people had never even heard me sing. Like,
Oh,
until I did it in front of like 1,700 people. They were like, "Oh, kid's got a voice."
okay. Wow.
Yeah, because I was 22, 23. Like, they're like, this is a kid. Like, no
So
one,
young.
yeah. And I had no credits, so luckily they trusted me after that first show. They were like, "All right, we can
Yeah.
work with this." And then, it shaped into like, yeah, just doing it and being up until the pandemic, unfortunately. But
The pit, like, I feel like that show, I was dying to see it. And then the pandemic happened, and I was like, please come back. And then everything started like closing
yeah,
during the summer of the pandemic. And I'm like, no.
yeah,
I'm
and that
like, there's
cast
so
was
many shows
like,
that I have to see.
yeah. I think the cast was like 53 people in the cast itself, like not company.
Oh my
It's huge, and just the rain and the special effects
God.
and the filming, like the camera work, it was so insane.
Yeah.
Also, kind of my first dive into acting on camera was on Broadway, which is very weird.
That's so true.
Yeah, we had to navigate like mid something's coming. I'm on camera, so I'm doing like film acting, and then I come
Oh,
out of the thing, and then it's the
so
Broadway stage,
intricate.
which is huge. So then you have to shift your style of acting mid-song, which was just a great learning. Like, just the whole thing was a great lesson in everything I ever could do as an actor. It was just the biggest test. So.
What an intricate production. And I hope they like can find a way to bring the revival back in that creative way.
That would be cool. I've never thought about that. If that production came back, if I was asked to do it, I would still be just as scared. It's such a hard role in that production. Um,
Well, and you literally have to like walk on water
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was.
and dance on water.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I felt so drained. I would describe it as, the feeling after you're on the beach all day and you're like wet and just like so tired. It was
And
like,
the sun wears you out because the sun
yeah.
like drains all your energy.
Exactly, like, you're in the
Yes.
sun and it literally wears you out. I look at videos from Curtain Call of West Side Story, and now I remember why they would always be like, "Jordan, can you smile more at Curtain Call?" Because I would literally just be like,
Like I'm tired.
and I look back, I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm mortified that I was bowing like that." But I literally had nothing left, and, like, a bunch of us
No
looked,
energy.
we were just, like, wet, covered in blood, and just, like, cold, and just like, "Thanks for coming to West Side Story. We're gonna do it again tomorrow."
Well, I think that goes to I was talking with a friend the other day about how like alternates on Broadway, when you're doing 8 shows a week and a show is like that high demand work-wise and like on your body, that like alternates definitely need to be a factor in these shows.
Yes, I fully agree. I think that it should be more of a thing. I think it should be normalized that more roles have alternates. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that role isn't demanding enough to have an alternate." And I'm like, anything is demanding when you're doing it 8 times a week.
Yeah,
If I am like raising my hand in a scene 8 times a week, eventually I'm gonna have a shoulder issue because you're doing
right.
it that many times. So yeah, I just think the culture of alternates is one that we need to keep ushering in. Just keep it coming. I know
Yes.
people that are advocating for themselves when they book a role on Broadway, being like, I would like to do seven and I would like to have an alternate. And sometimes it's a fight, but that's something I plan on doing next time I'm playing a role on Broadway. I'm definitely going to be like, if you guys are interested in an alternate, that is something that I really want and want to advocate for myself.
I mean, also it gives other people like it gives other people like a chance to shine
Yeah,
and more exposure. And I feel
exactly.
like with these like shows that are being like stunt casted too, like with like you have Aaron and like Sweeney Todd and stuff, who's
Right.
definitely a Broadway actor, but like maybe like have someone who goes on like 2 times a week, who is
Exactly.
extremely talented, who no one's seen them on stage yet, who
Right.
like that'd be awesome.
Then everyone wins. You know, you have this alternate who's getting this chance. You have the principal actor who's doing it, and they get to one have a break and be
Yeah.
able to do the shows that they're doing with more ferocity. Is that a word? Ferocity.
I feel like
You know what
yeah,
I mean, though.
yeah, like more
Yeah,
stamina.
exactly. That's it. That's it. Um, so yeah, everyone wins, and especially like speaking of Sweeney Todd, Nick Christopher, who goes on for Sweeney often, is unreal. Unreal. Like
I've
more,
heard.
yeah. People need to see that. People need to celebrate that. And honestly, like the press and marketing teams for Broadway need to advertise that more
Yes.
as well. Like not specifically Sweeney Todd, every show. Like we should start marketing our alternates and our covers and our understudies. Um,
Oh, completely agree because like you see some of the like most unexpected you're like, I wasn't expecting to see like such a talented person on stage
yeah,
understudying this role today. Like
yeah,
I feel like I've seen some of my favorite performers like when I go into the theater and it's like standby is on today or understudy is on today.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Some of the best performances I've seen have been, covers for the role, and I'm like, oh my gosh! And now I can't wait to come back to the show to see the principal, or I'll go to a show specifically because a cover is on. Like the number of times I've seen Anne Juliet to be like, all right, I want to see Rachel as Juliet, and I want to see my,
Right.
like it's just so much fun.
I do that in LA too.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's a blast. If you're able to go to shows that often. So, um,
Yes.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my god, it's the best to be like, well, yeah, I've seen this show like 10 times, but it's a different show tonight because this person's on.
right, right. Yeah, I think it should just happen more often.
Speaking of that, you got brought into Hadestown in to cover Orpheus. I think when Reeve was like on a vacation, right? Or something like
Yeah. Yeah, so basically I had I had auditioned and had the opportunity to join Hadestown as an Orpheus cover a few times before that, but it never worked out with scheduling and you know, contractually, like it just never like lined up. And then one day they just were like, "Hey, can you come back in? Reeve is going to be filming a movie, actually, for like at least a month. He has a chunk that he has to be filming a month."
yeah.
And they were like, "We need someone to just play Orpheus for that month." And I was like, "By all means,
Yes.
I have a month. I can do it." So I went back and auditioned again, and then they were like, "All right, you're Orpheus, for I think it ended up being like a month and a half or something like that, which
And
was
it's
oh yeah, no,
such a
please,
good show. Like for especially for someone who appreciates musicians, that role is just like top
yeah,
notch.
yeah, that role and the whole show. I mean, the Fates are playing instruments, the band is on stage, you're surrounded by all the music. Has always been my favorite show since it came out. Um, like the concept album, the New York Theater Workshop live album. I actually like stopped listening to it because I was like, I'm gonna play this role one day. I've never heard a role that I feel so right for, and I don't want anyone else's voice in my head, even though Damon Dono is like incredible as Orpheus, and Reeve is insanely like such beauty in his Orpheus. Um, I had to just be like, I'm not listening to either of them because like I have to do this one day. So the fact that it happened, I was like, holy shit, I get to do it. Everyone who knows me was like, oh, you've been manifesting this for a long, long time. So it was just like a really cool thing for me and my community of people who knew how much it meant to me that I got to play that role. So yeah,
Manifesting works, everyone.
really does. I'll burn a bay leaf and be like, this has to come to me, like um, but it was a dream come true. I've never had more fun in a role. I've never felt so authentic in a role, and never had like more pleasure singing a score than singing Orpheus. Um, and I just got to learn from really cool people. Like as a replacement, you don't get as much time and as much backstory as the people who created the show. So I was just asking questions left and right, like from anyone I could get information from. And Rachel Chafkin was so helpful. But the people there at the oh, sorry, what'd you say?
I said, speaking of icons.
Oh, literally an icon. And I'm so grateful for her because she carried me through that, taught me so much, and was just so supportive, but also like hard on me, which I very much appreciate because I hate when someone's just like, "Oh yeah, you sound great," and like you're doing the job. But Rachel wouldn't let me get away with anything. She was like, "No, like this is the moment, and this is how you know, and however you get there, but this is where you need to get." And I was just like, "Let's fucking go." Sorry.
I feel like that also instills confidence though, because like you mentioned earlier that there's always those voices in the back of your head. And I feel like especially for talented people in theater shows, there's always gonna be those voices that of self-doubt, even though you all are great. And the directors, the people behind the scenes, they have to come in and be like, "You got this." Like, have
Yeah,
confidence in yourself.
it makes such a difference. It really does. So I'm really like I just cherish that, and honestly, someone else in that show who carried me and just like answered every annoying question I had was Amber Gray. I can't say enough about like what she gave me as an actor from getting to work with her. Um, I mean, she gave me like this sense of freedom that I never had before, and also a sense of like humility on stage that I didn't have to like always transform into this other thing that even though it's vulnerable, I can
Yeah.
be myself at the same time. It's kind of I didn't explain that well, but I think you know what I mean.
No, you get to bring yourself to you're not playing the carbon copy of
Right.
what Beef plays on stage or what other have played on stage in like previous productions. You're going about it and you're finding like your own Orpheus.
Right. And it's like harder said than done. Which I didn't realize, but luckily I just had her to carry me through that and teach me so much. And Eva as well, because Eva is who I was falling in love with every night, and she's just so she's so raw and visceral on stage and off stage, and just like such an advocate for our mental health as actors, which was so helpful as like me who like often has imposter syndrome, and it's like I'm sorry that I'm now like Orpheus, and I know Reeve, and she was like, shut up, like
Oh.
get it together in the most beautiful and wonderful way. um so the people in that show really gave me these beautiful lessons for the rest of my career that I just try to share with people when I can, when someone's asking for advice. I have Amber and Eva and Rachel in my ear. And I just like
Great
spew what
voices.
they gave me, you know?
Well, I mean, great voices to have in your ear at all times.
I'm very lucky.
Yes. What was your favorite? Hadestown is one of my favorite shows on Broadway right now on like tour and stuff. What was your favorite song to perform on stage as Orpheus and why?
Doubt comes in. That's an easy one.
Oh,
It's the very end, well, almost the very end. And one, it is just like
this is
one,
scary.
it's scary. It's scary. There's a hole in the stage, and I'm on the turntable around the hole, and it's pitch black.
Sorry. Yeah.
You can't see anything. There's just like a hazy spotlight on just my face. No one else is on stage. And they were like, and really like look up, like almost like you're in a back bend. And I was like, there's a
But don't
hole,
fall.
and I can't see anything. And there's a point where I'm supposed to change turntables. And it was just like such a challenge. And like I was just scared out of my mind. So one, it was a challenge. Two, acting wise, it's where you really get to let go and almost like have a breakdown, almost. Like you don't really get to, but you're on that brink. And I think that's like such a special place as an actor to be on the brink of something but not quite there. Um, it's just like fun to play those moments. And then 3, vocally, it's just fun. You really get to give it. It's I think some of the highest stuff he has. And
Isn't that
I like singing in that range. When he's like, I have no voice right now, it's early, but
insane?
that those parts, it's just fun to be able to like wail up there unapologetically because he's Orpheus is scared. And also something that I think Amber told me this as well. In the show, anytime Orpheus sings those la 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 la, they're always echoed by the ensemble, and something magical always happens. Either he creates a flower or the tables and chairs start floating. And my big question was like, why does he turn around? Like what? I know that he's doubting himself, but someone on that team told me it's the first time he sings those la la la's and it's not echoed and nothing magical happens. And he's never experienced that before. So he sings it and then he's listening and nothing happens. Then he goes again.
Wait, that's mind blowing to me though.
Yes. And it's like, that's why he's freaking out. He doesn't have any power. There's no one supporting him. So all of that combined is just like this really cool moment of storytelling. So doubt comes in always when I would get there. I'd be like, oh, here we go. Like I really get to like dive into this like really awesome part of the show.
And then you
And
hear everyone gasp at the end when
yeah,
Orpheus turns around. It's like every night.
they're like, no. And like,
Oh my god! And I'm sure some nights are more entertaining than others at the end of that song. I'm sure there's like one person in the audience who's like, oh!
yeah, sometimes people will be like, come on. Like they'd be mad at Orpheus. And I'm like, I get it. I get it.
You're like, yes, mood,
Also,
absolutely.
like Wait for Me is obviously really fun. Like you're like floating up on this thing, you're like pushing the set apart. It's just like this really cool moment of like literally having like magical powers given to you by the gods, singing your face off and just being in the center, rising up on this thing, watching it all happen. Like in that moment, you can see the audience a lot because there's so many lights. And I'm just like looking out into the underworld. But then I saw my dad and started crying. Because it was just like I've never felt like more of a leading actor than doing Wait for Me when you're like rising up.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, the lambs though. I like hold my breath when the Orpheuses are on stage and the swinging lights.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, watch out for the lights, everyone.
Yeah, you got to get that choreo right because I've gotten hit once.
Oh, ow, honestly.
Yeah, and it's no one's fault but my own. I was just like, trying to live in my acting beat a little too long, and I was like, oh, a lamp.
Well, and there's so much going on, I feel like.
There is, yeah, and I never did the role long enough to like really settle in to be like this is second nature to me. So I was still always on like thinking mode. Um, so yeah, with all that going on, you're bound to get hit by a lamp once at least, you know.
Yeah. I'm sure literally every person who's played Orpheus has
I think so. Like Reeve
done it.
definitely has. He's told me about it.
Yeah, like
He also
multiple
like taught me the role too. He like taught me
yeah.
the flower and so
Oh my gosh. Like that's legit like magic.
it is. I have my first flower somewhere here. It's somewhere in my room, but they let me
Iconic.
keep it, which is so sweet.
Oh my god, it's like a souvenir. Well, I'm
Yeah.
sure I feel like I've heard such rave reviews about you as Orpheus that I feel like at some point you're gonna get like asked back to play the role.
I hope
So
that would be really cool if I got to.
manifesting.
Yeah, let's manifest it together.
Because I know more people definitely want to see you in that role.
I really would love to do it again. So if it comes back around, I'll
Yes.
listen about it. I'll let people know.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely want to talk about the Neil Diamond musical.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful Beautiful Noise, the Neil Diamond musical that you're part of.
Hmm.
So you also got to do the cast recording for that album.
Yeah.
And that is such an epic experience. I'm I saw that a post about it like on your Instagram. So that must have been like a really special like, oh my god, is this actually happening? I get to record a cast album for a show, and you get a pretty substantial solo on that album as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It
what was
was
that like?
that was another surreal moment where I was like bawling my eyes out the whole time. Um, just because all these things I just like would watch videos about in high school on YouTube, like, oh, there's Kelly O'Hara in the recording studio, or like, like Audra McDonald record, like you just watch these things growing up, and when you get to do them, it's so surreal. And that song, I sang the song Shilo in A Beautiful Noise. It meant so much to me because um I arranged that song myself and brought it into the audition,
Oh
my
my
initial audition
god.
workshop, and they put it in the show. They were like, you got the role, but also we want to use your arrangement and have you sing it in the show, which was so special to me that like my arrangement is on Broadway. Like I love arranging music, I love writing music. I never thought that a creative team would see that. I was just like, I don't know much about Neil Diamond, but I'm gonna make the song sound like me, just like
Yeah.
for fun. And if they like it, they like it. And I never thought it would culminate into that. So getting to do it on stage every night, and um having it be in a cast album, and seeing my name on the sheet music is like, it's a lot. It's a lot to,
I was gonna say you're forever a part of that show.
yeah. And I've been doing that show since the workshops and the out of town. And um I never thought that like a jukebox musical about Neil Diamond would have such an impact on my life. But like now, even like Katie Diamond, Neil's wife, like we stay in contact. Like she's such a big fan of Shilo, and Neil himself is like, I love what you did with my song. And that, like,
Stunning.
what? Neil Diamond's telling me that, like, who would have thought? It's
Well,
so wild. And I
it's
just
really stunning.
thank you so
I
much.
I was listening to it the other night and I was like, "Oh my god, this is like his voice is just insane, insanely beautiful."
Thank you, thank you. I love singing in that way, and like you don't often get to hear male-bodied performers sing in their like in such a soft way, and
Yes.
in their head voice and their falsetto, like much like Orpheus. So I arranged it to sound like the way I like to sing, and it
Yeah.
luckily paid off like in such a crazy way. So
Oh my god. Well, what an honor. And also getting to be in the show since its beginning stages. How cool is that to watch a show grow and develop?
it was just a huge education in the business of it all, the business behind show business. Watching a show shift and adapt, and like eventually have to become a little more commercial to appeal to a wider audience on Broadway. Doing the workshop is one thing, and then watching it out of town in Boston, watching it shift and like experiencing the shift and being like, oh, okay, people are responding to this more than we thought in the studio, and then to Broadway. It's a Yeah, it's a cool experience. And like I would say, if anyone has the opportunity to be a part of something from the workshop into out of town into Broadway, like really pay attention to why the changes are happening, which changes are happening, and like what the producers are saying. Like I was always just like listening to our producers and being like, why? Like why? What is, and it's just like a great lesson, especially if you want to dive into other parts of the industry. So
I like that you really like learn in every show you're in that you're like, my goal is to not only like be in this show and do my job, I want to learn stuff behind the scenes.
yeah, I think I like if I'm blessed enough to have these opportunities, it would be crazy if I didn't like try to like
Yeah.
as much information as I can. Like and luckily I've been in rooms that have allowed, like in West Side when I wasn't on, they would let me sit in the orchestra, like next to the violins. And I would just like chill there, or like they would let me sit in the light booth and be like, I'd be like, what? Like, how are you making this happen? How are you even designing the lights? Um, and they're just like really cool collaborators that will take the time to explain these things to me. And honestly, to most people who are interested. So I think that's like, if I can impart any advice to people listening, like learn as much as you can about the industry that you're in and that you want to be in every way, not just like being a performer or being a stage manager, whatever you do. Because it just only helps you understand why you're doing what you do, and like the small part that you have to play in this huge scope to make, like show business happen. So
Yes. Well, and now you're back in A Beautiful Noise in a whole, I think you're in a different, position right now than
yeah,
you
yeah,
started.
yeah,
So,
they called me and they were like, "Hey, we need some help with coverage. Would you be willing to like come back for a little bit, learn some other tracks?" And I was like, "By all means, talk about an education. I've never
yes.
spoken before." Like, and so at this point, like I had been a standby on Broadway. I had been a principal replacement. I've been an ensemble member. I've originated a Broadway principal, but I've never swung. And I'm like, that is something I know nothing about. I have a lot of respect for swings. And now I have this like random opportunity to get to do it for just like a little bit. I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to come learn as much as I can about swinging. And it's
Yes.
the hardest, like everyone's like, oh, like swings are so brave. It's the hardest thing. And oftentimes it's people that have never done it before, and that was me as well. But now that I'm doing it, I'm like, no, it's even harder than we're ever saying. It is. You have to be so incredibly talented, but also like your brain has to work in a way that is not required in any other thing. Like it's insane.
Your brain has to separate so many tracks in the
Yeah.
same show in the same numbers and be
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm in this track tonight, not this track that I was in last night.
Yeah, yeah. And luckily, I think my brain, like this is terrible. I get a little bored in long running shows. Not bored. Bored is the wrong word. I get antsy.
Yeah, you're like, I want to explore.
Yeah, so swinging has allowed that, where I'm like, okay, I'm getting antsy, but now I'm doing this and I'm doing this. I don't have the room to get antsy. Um, so it's just really fun, but also the biggest challenge. And also to like go back and do it in a show that I originated. It's like
Yes.
a family reunion. I'm like, hey everybody, I'm back, and
Everyone's
getting
like, yay.
together. Yeah, it's trippy for the original company members though, because they're seeing me on stage in different tracks. And so the
Wait.
guy, the guy who replaced me, we also kind of like favor each other, like we look alike a little bit. He's a good friend, DeAndre Savan. He's
Oh,
incredible. There was a point where it was the first time I was on for a different track, and me and him were like dancing toward this one girl, and she looked at us both and she was like, I actually don't know who's who. I don't know where to go. Like, where's my traffic? So it took a bit, not only for me to get used to it, but for the company who's
everyone.
used to me in one track to get used to me doing all the tracks.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's again live theater and learning as it goes is the best way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like it's all a big education that I believe is just setting me up for the next thing. Like everything I've trained and done, each job I've done has kind of trained me for the next job to come, kind of cosmically in that sense. So I'm never gonna say no to something that will teach me a lot.
I mean, also speaking of the next thing, after you first did Beautiful Noise, you get to work with Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah, that was wild.
Like how iconic.
Yeah, it was
I
crazy.
I was there when I forgot when it was, but he was DJing in Times Square and I'm like for the Phantom for a Phantom event. And
Yes,
I'm
it was like
like,
Phantom's reopening. I wasn't there, but I saw on Playbill a picture of Andrew Lloyd Webber DJing, and I was like, this is actually the most insane thing I've seen.
that was the coolest thing I've ever witnessed. Just, I
Yeah,
mean,
I bet.
what was your favorite part of getting to work on Bad Cinderella with Andrew Lloyd Webber like? I mean,
Oh,
honestly, I have to say that the Real Housewives parody promos were iconic.
the marketing for that show should be studied in years to come.
Yes.
The press marketing social media team, just beautiful work, beautiful work. No, it was cool. The coolest thing was just like realizing that he's such a normal guy. Like he after I booked it before we started the workshop of it, because we did a little workshop before Broadway. um he was like, can you come over, I want to work on a new song for your character. The song ended up getting cut, spoiler, it never happened.
God.
I went to his place,
Oh,
and he was him and David Zippel are writing the song while I'm there, and I'm like singing it with them while they're writing it and being like, they're like, what lyric? And I'm like, how about this one? Like just like chiming in when I can. Um and just realizing like how normal of people that, like they're just like normal guys. Like he's like a British dad, like having tea and cake.
oh my
Um,
God. I
yeah,
mean, yes.
yeah, and it's just like, like dads like tell stories that you're just like, wow, this is going on for a while. Like, but
It's
his
going nowhere. It's going on for a while.
right, his just happened to be about like Glenn Close, and I'm like, so it's never
Wow.
like to me, it's never like it's going on for a while. I'm like, what? And
You're
I'm
like,
like,
I'm
and
listening.
then what? Like, um, so I was just like, with him, I was just like entertained by his story. I
Yeah.
was just like, tell me more, like keep going, keep going. And then I would just like watch his process and watch David's process. And there were a lot of cooks in that kitchen of Bad Cinderella. So just watching all of the ideas come through and watching them try to filter them, and us trying to filter them, being like, that's not going to work, this will work, that actually didn't work. But at the end of the day, everyone knew that we were doing a pretty silly show and a fun show, and no one took it too seriously. So we all were like, let's have a good time.
Yes.
We did. It was the most fun I've had on Broadway was with that company. Yeah, it was a blast.
Well, I know people on the East Coast who were like, "Oh my God, why like it deserves a longer run than it got when it closed." And I
Yeah.
was like, again, I think I went to New York like 2 weeks after it closed. And I
Oh,
was
dang.
like, "No."
We knew that, like, or at least I knew, like, once it got announced, I was like, we're here for a good time, not a long time. Because people were already, like, there's no secret. People were like, we don't want this once it was announced. And we were just like, all right, well, we're gonna do it. We're gonna have
We're gonna
fun.
have fun.
And a lot of people loved it. Yeah, a lot of people
Yeah.
were having a great time. But there was like a vendetta from the start that had nothing to do with us. So we were just like,
No.
we can't control this. Let's make the best out of what like we're doing here. And it really was like the team, the cast, the crew, the orchestra, like everyone in that building was just there to have a good time.
Most
And
important thing.
yeah, and it was just like truly the most fun I've had and one of the most special experiences I've had. It was, and I love them. We're all actually getting together later today.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
yeah, the
It's a
whole
big
cast.
family. It's a
Yeah,
huge family.
we have a WhatsApp, and we just like keep in touch. We're like, oh, like so and so,
Love
like
that.
people in their next shows, and yeah, we're doing like a bar crawl today. So
That's the sweetest. Oh
should
my
be
gosh. Like goals to be in a company like that. Because like
right.
I feel like Broadway's like a very like tight knit community, but you might not always find shows that are that close and like with cast members that keep up with each other and stuff.
Yeah, it really doesn't always happen. And with that show, the other thing is not a single ego in the room. Like there are icons like Carolee Carmello and,
Yes.
and Grace McLean, like icons, not an ego at all. Like we'll be like, oh, I'm having a little show, like a little cabaret if anyone wants to come. Carolee will roll up on her motorcycle, literally take her helmet off and be like, I saw on the WhatsApp that you have a show. Any room? Like, and I'm like, what? I grew up watching you on YouTube, and you just took off your motorcycle helmet to come watch me sing one song in a cab. Like it
You're like,
just
yes, there's room.
yeah, like, please, by all means. And just everyone in the company is that way, just like so happy to support each other on all of our endeavors post Bad Cinderella.
I got
It's a family
gold.
that I think I'll always have. So I really love everyone in that show.
Literal goals, honestly, to be in a work environment like that.
Yeah, yeah,
I
truly.
mean, also, you probably listen to like a Phantom and like cat songs and stuff now, and you're like, I worked with him, the writer.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
like,
so I've never seen Phantom before, and my first time seeing Phantom was with Andrew. Me and Lady and Andrew went to the 35th anniversary of Phantom together, and we were his guests, and I was like, this is crazy.
oh my God.
My
I,
second time seeing it was its closing with Andrew as well. And I was just like, this is actually so insane. I don't know what to do.
well, he probably got to like watch you be captivated by the show because I couldn't look away from the stage when I first saw it.
Yeah, it was like, I'm sure it was entertaining for him because it was me and Lady's first time seeing Phantom.
Oh my
So,
God.
and we told him this. We're like, Andrew, I know this is what made you Andrew Lloyd Webber, but we don't know anything
Yeah,
about this. So like, let's go, let's do it. And it was so fun. It was like fun for him, I think. It seemed like it. And just like
probably.
fast for us.
Well,
So
because he's watching a new generation
right.
discover his work.
Yeah, yeah,
'Cause I feel like the reason like I saw it like 5 years, like 5, 6 years ago for the first time, and I was like, how have I not seen this? But it goes to a new generation
yeah.
eventually.
And it holds up. It is such an incredible piece of theater.
It
Um,
is
yeah,
truly.
he's such an icon.
So I want to talk to kind of like wrap up. First of all, you've worked with like so many iconic people over your career, over like the beginning of your career, honestly.
Yeah,
So,
it's great.
who inspires you in the theater world?
Oh, like more than anyone, Audra McDonald has always been the one for me. Like inspires me to the moon and back. And in A Beautiful Noise, Will Swenson, like that's her husband. So and he played Neil Diamond. So she was there a lot, and I was just like trying to keep it together. But she was so wonderful and also like gave me some like great nuggets of wisdom. So Audra is a huge inspiration to me. Um, the late Brent Carver, um, uh, rest in peace. I've always looked up to Brent Carver from Parade to Kiss of the Spider Woman. He's also the first like leading man that I've ever seen that wasn't this like huge masculine thing that we think of as a leading man. And that like did a lot for me as a young theater actor and still does. And when I get insecure about trying to go after these lead roles that I don't feel super qualified for because of how I present or how I look or how I
So
in the
qualified.
world, I think of Brent every time and just been like he did it, so I can do it too. So Brent and Audra are the two that kind of made me the theater artist that I am, to be quite honest.
I mean, honestly, props to you for playing it cool around Audra because I don't know if I could. I grew up on that 1999 Annie.
Oh
And
yes, me too.
I watched it like I think like 300 times between the ages of like 6 and 10.
Oh my God, yeah. I didn't keep it very cool. Like there's a picture on my Instagram where I'm actually gonna find it where I was like, "Can I take a picture with you?" And she was like, "Yeah, totally." And the caption is, "Please adopt me, Audra McDonald," which is not chill at all. Here it is. As
Yes.
and she
Hey, did she
reposted,
adopt you yet?
she reposted it and said, "I'll gladly adopt you." I was like, the day that
It's
I was
official.
like, "That's it. I don't need anything else."
It's official
Right.
then. Yeah.
I'm Will Swenson and Audra McDonald. I'm your new son. Thank you so much.
Yes. You're like, hi parents.
That could work. Like we could do a show where I'm there. That would work out. I'm manifesting that too. Let's
Manifest.
put that out there.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm And when that happens, I'm gonna be like, oh, we talked about this.
Right. But I
Yeah.
did not keep my cool around her at all. Not at all.
Oh
I was
my God.
a mess.
Literally icon. Like
Yeah, I cry. I cry a lot, but I was crying.
oh my God. I mean I would too. I'd be like, I watched you and Annie 200 and something times,
Funny.
300 something times.
Yeah.
So well, I feel like it's probably hard to have a bucket list when you've done so much. But do you have a current bucket list besides being Audrey McDonald's son in a musical?
Oh, that's really hard. I want to do a movie musical really badly, like career-wise. I want to keep doing like more like on-screen work because I like started falling in love with that. But doing both at the same time, that would be really fun. And bucket list, I really want to do all of the like thrill things like a skydiving, parasail. Well, I went parasailing actually, so that I could check that off. Um,
Parasailing? Yeah.
wild. But skydiving is definitely number one.
Great.
And I want to get my license as a translator in American Sign Language.
Oh
Because
my God.
my grandparents are deaf and my whole family signs, and I sign well, but I'm not completely fluent, especially in like the new ASL. So I want to make sure that I get my certification and become a translator.
Oh
So
my God. Would be like cool to like have kind of like a crossover of like a movie musical with with like ASL in it. That'd be really cool.
yeah, my dream is if like that Deaf West Spring Awakening production. I wasn't in New York yet, couldn't audition, but like having it be about deaf actors, which is so much a part of my life. Um, I was a mess. Like I was, it just like was
Yeah.
everything to me. So if that turned into a film, I that would be the biggest passion project of my life. I would claw my way into that room. I don't care how. So that would be a dream come true.
Oh my gosh. Or I mean, honestly, like anything created, like any new musical, honestly, for the screen or anything at this
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I love being a part of a new creation process. So that'd be great.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So before I wrap up, how do you work on self-confidence in this industry?
Oh, through community, honestly. Like no, like talking to people and like being honest with people. I mean, like I'm scared and I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know how to pull this off. And realizing that when you're vulnerable and like tell other people that, uh, they'll tell you right back. I've been in that position so many times and I so often don't know what I'm doing. And just having people that you can relate to and that can lift you up when you're down and know that you're going to lift them up when they're down. Having a sense of community, I think, is the biggest thing um, in this industry, but just in life in general. Like, we can't do this alone. And like Broadway acting, no matter what level you're on, you can't do it alone. So that's how I try to keep it together.
It's so very true. You need people to like, hey, like I'm having an off day. I can confide in you today.
Mm-hmm. Me and I think she'd be okay with me sharing this. Grace McLean, she played my mom in Bad Cinderella. She was the queen. And there's a point where we're on the turntable in the very opening number, and it turns and we're like kind of in the back, so no one can see us. And we would just check in and be like, "How are you today?" And I could be like, "I'm anxious and my heart is beating really quick, and I'm still recovering from whatever, like vocally." And she's like, "Okay, what do you need?" And I'm like, "Just know if I squeeze your hand in the show, like I just need to know that you know that I'm going through it." And she would do the same. She'd be like, "Can you remind me to breathe at certain points in the show?" And I'd be like, "Yep." And
Oh,
we would just be there with each other throughout the show. And she was my rock in that show. And it's you need that. You need it.
that's the most precious. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. The number of times I've cried in her dressing room, she's carried me through so much. But
Oh my God. Shout out to her.
shout
Also,
out to Grace.
shout out to you for being like a turntable expert.
Well, at that point with Hadestown, you know, I can do a turntable in my sleep at this point.
Like I can walk on. I've been on one in the dark. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
In the pitch black. So
exactly.
where can people follow you on social media to keep up with your wild journey, to keep up with what you're doing, and like when you're on for Beautiful Noise,
Oh
etc.
yeah, yeah. I do. I try and post as much as I can about what I'm working on and what I'm doing. So I'm on Instagram, only on Instagram at Jordan Dobson underscore JORDANDOBSON underscore. And yeah, it's mainly me, what I'm working on, and my cat Lemon. She always makes an appearance. And yeah, yeah, thank you so much.
Of course. And be and do you have anything that you'd want to promote or talk about? Or I mean, you have Beautiful Noise that's you're course
Yes,
in,
there's
and then a film, obviously.
right. Yeah, watch Maestro. It's on Netflix. Check it out. I'm in that. Come see A Beautiful Noise on Broadway. It's so fun. It's just full of joy. And then there are two other things, but as I'm saying them, they're not announced yet, and I don't think I can say it until they're announced. So
So
just like look out for my Instagram, or like if something comes out on Playable or Broadway, like I don't know when, but should be fun.
little
And
teaser.
yeah, a little teaser. Some things hopefully are about to happen. So yeah. And until then,
Oh
check out Lemon, my cat, on my Instagram. She's the
my
best.
god. Oh my god. Fully support. All my half my stories are of my dog. So
Oh, all right. Well, we have to connect on Instagram too.
yes,
We can
yes.
pets a bunch.
Thanks for watching this episode of Backstage with Becca B. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Becca B Talks TV. Or for more exclusive content from this interview and more, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Backstage with Becca B. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video. Or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give me a 5-star rating. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!